How's it going, everybody? This is Novakast back with another video for you guys. Really excited to do some more of this, at least talking or reviewing about Final Space. So let's get to it. Season 2, episodes 9 and 10. Oh my gosh, a lot happens in this. I guess starting off with episode 9, we're continuing where the last one left off, where we have a amnesia induced avocado, and they're trying to get his memory back, and the strangest way they decide to do it is by whipping him. I'm not making this up. They whip him in order to try to get him to remember anything. And thanks to Tribor, who just randomly shows up, he's able to remember just a little bit. Periodically through the episode, he remembers, everyone, and is able to help them uncover, or at least find a way to contact Quinn after they receive a distress signal from Quinn from Final Space. So what they end up doing is they go to this planet that has something called clear water, which, according to Avocado, is apparently liquefied space-time. So they go to the planet, and Gary ends up drinking some of the clear water, and it's nightmare fuel. I mean, especially with a couple of things that they see, where, like, for one, we see like these mutated, I don't know, like they're these disfigured, or I actually, no, I don't want to call it disfigured, because we only see like a black outline, but it's like this creature, telling Gary to climb this mountain or this structure made out of corpses. So he ends up doing it, and then comes across a pool of clear water that scares the living crap out of him, and then comes across this other creature named Phil, which, again, it's nightmare fuel, who apparently gives them a map in order to traverse the clear water. And sure enough, with the map, it does help him-ish, where he's able to see Quinn, but gets kind of pulled into the clear water, and is able to see Quinn for the first time since, they lost the Earth. Apparently, she is in Final Space, surrounded by the corpses of Gary. And as we were told by Nightfall, apparently, every time she went back in time to try to save Gary was usually the one that would be the one to close the gate. So this time around, it's like you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Gary corpses surrounding Quinn. And Quinn mentions that, Invictus is the one doing it. And eventually, out of the blue, Invictus shows up. Quinn tells Gary to run, but doesn't help. He's possessed. And for a brief, while Gary is unconscious, we see Avocado and Avocado kind of trying to protect him from these alien birds. And thankfully, throughout the confrontation, Avocado remembers his son, because the entire time, the entire episode, Avocado doesn't remembers everything else except his own son, which honestly is really sad. But anyway, so what ends up happening is they're able to stop the birds, but Gary wakes up, and it turns out it's not actually Gary, it's Invictus who has possessed Gary. They try their best to fight Gary, but either it's Invictus or Gary, who supposedly is actually really good at fighting. They get their asses handed to them. Invictus, or at least after one move, gets pinned down by Avocado, who Invictus then proceeds to possess Avocado, and through the influence of Avocado, or through the influence of Invictus, sorry, I mixed the two up, proceeds to then shoot Gary, almost fatally. And this is I will say this is one of the, like, this is a sad moment, because we have Little Kato, who is, like, doesn't know what to do. One of his best friends is, you know, the friend of his father is, you know, about to get killed, and his father is possessed by, ancient evil. So Little Kato, knowing, like, kind of like wondering what to do, proceeds to do the only thing he can do at this time: shoot his father in order to save Gary. And with that, we see Avocado apparently being pulled into the earth, or the ground of the planet, by some force. And that's it. That's all we see of him till then. Gary is put in a critical state. He's put in a pod so he can heal. And Little Kato is, like, near the end of the episode, is staying by his side because he feels responsible, or doesn't know what to do at this point, now that, one, his father's best friend is in critical condition, and he shot his father. So, yeah. On a happier note, I hate to do that, but yeah, on a happier note, there was a really weird situation with like, in the middle, or at least in between the episode, where we have Tribor, and we have this character show back up from season 1 who apparently really loves Tribor, and we have this, like, really weird freaking scene where Tribor talks about how he's in love with himself, and that he apparently, like, with the race that he comes from, he is able to switch back and forth from male to female. So he's in love with himself, but doesn't know which self he loves. So we have this really weird scene where Tribor is having dinner with this girl, but she has a mirror attached to her face. So Tribor's looking at himself. I'm just like, I look at that, I'm just like, what the fuck? But all in all, I will say it was funny to an extent. I feel bad for the girl who likes Tribor. It's a shitty situation, but that's what happens, I guess. Now, I enjoyed this episode. I think it was actually really good, especially with I think probably the greatest moment would have to be, or at least probably the most, like, heart-wrenching would have had to be the moment where Little Kato has to make the choice of whether or not to shoot his father in order to save Gary. Because that was, yeah, just like, they just got him back, and then all of a sudden he has to, deal with that whole situation. It's a shitty situation, but at the same time, it sucks. Now, going on to episode 10, which is was actually another really interesting episode. After Gary wakes up from, almost dying, Little Kato, apparently while he was asleep or unconscious, had left the ship. So we have pretty much everybody trying to go to the planet where he sent the signal to them, or this message to them, in order to try to save, or not try to save, but get Little Kato back. So in between that, we also have this whole thing where we have Cheryl Goodspeed captured by the Ruffles leader guy. I can't remember his fucking name, but at the same time I should. The guy that, had... You know what it just dawned on me? The character design for that, for the Ruffles, I'm not gonna lie, it reminds me of one of the characters from, oh gosh, what was... the Foster's Home Foster's home of imaginary friends. That's what it is. The tall basketball imaginary friend. For some reason, his design reminds me of that character. It looks so similar, if you ask me. But anyways, we have Cheryl, who's captured. She almost escapes, but ends up being, I guess, subdued. And the dude starts looking into her memories. And we actually see more as to why she kind of has like a harsh, like, feelings towards her own son. Where we get to see how she fell in love, how like the reason why she met John Goodspeed, how she fell in love, and inevitably what caused her to a degree hate her son. And it's screwed up. It really is. Now, going back to the main mission, everybody's trying to find Locato. Locato, who feels like he has nowhere to go, proceeds to join a group of bandits or mercenaries or killers, marauders, I guess. And he wants to try to prove himself. So what they do is they pick the biggest bounty that they have, that being, unfortunately, Gary. So that's gonna suck. I think he says it best, like, oh yeah, sure, not like I have an emotional attachment to that guy or anything. I thought that was like one of the best lines. There's a scene that is kind of weird where Gary and everybody's trying to find Locato, and they come across this guy who will give them information if Gary stabs him. And I'm not fucking kidding. Like every piece of information, Gary ends up having to stab this alien dude, and it was weird. It was really, really messed up too. Especially like near the last piece of information. He's like, "Oh, I'll give it to you, but you have to stab me in the neck." And it's like, what the fuck, dude? So Gary does oblige and ends up killing the guy, unfortunately. But they're able to, find Little Kato with the Marauders, who proceeds to try to kill Gary. And while they're trying to kill Gary, Gary kind of gives this speech about how, to always do what they can, even when they're dealt, a terrible life. And does something which I kind of figured Gary would do, or at least I didn't see Gary doing. I'm sorry, I didn't see Gary doing, or them setting up for Gary to do. But it was actually a cool moment where Gary's like, stepping up, and I think this is due to Nightfall having a discussion with Gary about stepping up for Little Kato once they find him. And Gary basically says, what if I just adopt you? And sure enough, that's what happens. Little Kato's like, what? You want to be my dad? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I guess this became such an emotional scene that even the leader of the bounty hunters, like, oh, go with him. He starts tearing up. By the way, another thing I noticed too is the bounty hunter was voiced by Ron Perlman. I'm just like, fucking Ron Perlman, man. It's always nice to hear his voice. He's so fucking cool. So yeah, Locato is now Gary's adopted son. So awesome. And I kind of, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of saw that kind of dynamic between these two, where it's like Gary, even though kind of being friendly with him, treated Little Kato as kind of like a son, which I thought was really, really fucking cool. So yeah, I like it. I really, really, really fucking like it. Now, I think I would hate myself if I forgot to mention this. There was another like subplot in this episode. It was a weird one. And I kind of laughed, and there were like a couple points where I'm like, oh, they aren't fucking doing this. And sure enough, yeah, they fucking did this. Where Clarence finds out apparently that the king of the world that they are on died, and the queen has to be remarried before sunset. And if they don't, or she doesn't, then all of her possessions, including this crown that apparently is very valuable, ends up being destroyed. So he decides, fuck it, I'm going to get married. So he does, or at least incapacitates all of the other suitors, and woos the queen, who is close to resembling Cthulhu. And he's horrified, but at the same time, he's letting his greed get the best of him. Sure enough, it goes wrong. Like, I don't want to go into too much, but it is really, really fucking wrong. I felt uncomfortable watching most of it, but, that's the show for you. So, all in all, this was alright. I gotta say, I really enjoyed this episode. I think my favorite, out of the different plots of this episode, had to be, just Gary becoming, making official of, Little Kato being his adopted son, which I thought was a cool thing to do with this episode. Because, again, I think it's already been kind of set up where you have that dynamic between Little Kato and Gary, where Little Kato is Gary's adopted son. So, in some sense, I kind of already saw that. But, anywho. Alright, I think I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. I think I've said enough as is for the episodes. So, that was episode 9 and 10 for Season 2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Rob Novakast signing off. Have a good one, and take care. Peace.